Hello everyone, here is Alan, and today I want to talk to you about my deck tech of my Sultai Control list, which performed very well. It's my best win rate so far among the decks I played in Pioneer Highlander, 80% win rate over 30 matches. That's really good. Today I want to discuss what are the main core principles of this deck, why I chose to build it in this way, not the other way, and talk about some specific groups of cards I have here. I had previous experience with Sultai decks in Gladiator and also in Pioneer Highlander. Those decks were very grindy, very good at matchups where the card advantage mattered, where you needed answers for different types of permanents. Sultai Colors is great at this, but the deck struggled if someone developed too quickly. It struggled against some aggro decks and against some tempo decks. The problem was that my deck was getting behind too quickly. So my idea was that to stabilize when I'm behind, I just need to play more board wipes and less value creatures. When I play more board wipes, I will play less creatures that have no ETBs, creatures that are maybe grindy, maybe provide value, but they want to stick to the board to provide that value. I prefer creatures that have some effects immediately, give their value, and then I don't care that much if they go to graveyard or not. So there are many cards, good cards I had to omit here. Like for example, Glissa, which is a very good creature, but you want her on board to provide value. You want her to attack or to stay and block everything. Here are my board wipes. Another thing I learned from playing Sultai Control in the past was that conditional board wipes are very good. Board wipes that you can tailor to your own needs. In the best case scenario, you destroy your opponent's creatures while you leave your own creatures alive. Such an board wipe is, for example, Extinction Event. I like it because it's also mass exile, so it doesn't trigger any death abilities. Creatures are no longer in graveyard. That's very good. He also got recently some more board wipes that are good. We got Vicious Rivalry. It also board wipes Artifact, Day of Black Sun. Midhope Massacre, also very good at stabilizing because it gains you life. I also included two board wipes attached to creatures. Massacre Girl and Harvester of Misery. They are both kind of suited for different board states. Sometimes you don't have the chain to make Massacre Girl destroy everything. And Harvester of Misery is also good because it's flexible and you can discard it for 2 mana. I also add Withering Curse. Sometimes enabling this life gain is a bit hard, but I still like it. I also decided to put in Poison the Waters. It only gives creatures -1/-1, so it's better against some token strategies. It can sometimes kill some mana dorks, or versus tempo decks. It kills all the flyers that are X and with 1 toughness. And I like it because it's not a dead card. Like, if something was on the board, you can kill what's on the board. If nothing is on the board, you can take something from opponent's hand and gain some relevant information. So 2 mana is a fair cost for those effects, I think, and the flexibility is very good. There's also Cyclonic Rift, and that's a card I will be cutting. When I included it in my deck, I thought of it that for 2 mana you can just gain some time to develop, and for 7 mana you can reset your opponent's board. But it turns out that returning to hand isn't that great when opponent can just replay the stuff that you return to their hand. Sometimes when opponent attacked me for lethal, I had to Cyclonic Rift them during the combat phase, but then they just replayed their creatures and I had to deal with them once more. So it wasn't performing as well as I thought, so I'm cutting it. Now you will notice that I grouped my cards differently, and I grouped them by the mana value, by the least mana value that you can play them. So at first the curve of the deck seems quite high, but when you put it like this, it shows you that the curve is really very modular. That's also a strength of this deck. You have a lot of things you can do early. Once more, we don't want to get overrun by aggro or tempo in the early game, so we want to have options to play our stuff early and to impact the board early. But those same cards can be played later for more value. That's very good. And speaking of mana values, we also have this tiny little Up the Beanstalk. It's a great card draw engine, and with all those modal mana values, we can play quite a lot spells with mana value 5 or 6, or spells with X in the cost, and we can allow this Up the Beanstalk to be more consistent, and I really like it very much here. Overall, we've got 17 cards that can trigger Up the Beanstalk. That's a very hefty amount. Another thing you will notice is that my deck plays very little counter magic. Only Jewelry Disruption. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it, sorry. And 3 steps ahead. I'm playing those two because they are modal. This can be played as a land, and this has additional modes. Sometimes creating a copy of a creature can be very powerful. This deck is more of a tapped out control. We have many creatures, we have board wipes that are sorcery speeds, we have removal that is not instant but is sometimes sorcery in the forms of sagas like Awaken the Honored Dead or Binding the Old Gods. So we don't often have the ability to keep up open mana during opponent's turn, so we don't play that much counter magic. We prefer some hand attack, some removal spells instead. Another quirk of this deck is that we are playing Atraxa and we're splashing white color for it. You may think, wait, I've got only one Lash Portico as my source of white mana, then how is consistent is Atraxa? So I have some ways to find that Lash Portico. We've got 3 fetch lands to find it. We also got Multiversal Passage, which can be put into play for white. We've got Starting Town that can also tap for white mana. Binding the Old Gods can find us a forest. So this is a forest, it can find it. Analyze the Pollen, if we collect evidence, it can also find any land. But it can also find any creature, so it can find, for example, Overlord of the Huntwoods, which makes lands that tap for any color of mana. We also got Cornucopia and Defied Shaman, and very important, we don't have to always hard cast Atraxa, we can Lich Evo for Atraxa. And that has been a very, very successful deck tech for me. It feels like cheating when I convert my Overlord or Harvester of Misery or another creature into Atraxa. It feels so good and won me many, many games. Eldritch Evo can also put other creatures. There are many ways to tutor something with Eldritch Evolution, and it's very good here. We can also kind of scam Atraxa into play as Cavero or Superior Spider-Man in the other version, but spoiler alert, I will be cutting Cavero just because he's not consistent enough. Sometimes we don't have the right creature in our graveyard. We can also copy opponent's creature from graveyard, but I think overall we want some more consistent cards in our deck. We want some ramp here, but we don't want mana dorks, because mana dorks will just die to our own board wipe. The only exclusion I made is for Deathragged Shaman, because it's also a graveyard hate, it's flexible, I like it enough to play this mana dork, and it can ramp us even on turn 2. We also got stuff like Studious First Year, Shared Roots, which are just the same effects but one on a stick. We've got also Growth Spiral and Insidious Fungus also to ramp us. We've got our 2 mana Mana Rock, And I keep forgetting that you can exile a creature you control to harness it, and that you can do it on instant speed. So you can do this in response to removal. I also got Ancient Cornucopia, but I think I might cut it and try some other cards here. But it's a decent card, and that can also help us get back into the game when our life is low. Uro is great. As everybody knows, Binding can destroy something and get us a land. Overlord gets us more lands. This deck is extremely mana hungry, and we always want as much mana as it is possible. We also play some good blue spells that draw us cards. That's one of the main reasons to play blue here. I also like cards that draw and discard, like Winter Night Stories. I like it because they can be played from the graveyard, and drawing and discarding, it allows you to just tailor your hand to the needs of the matchup and the board state. Sometimes you're looking for a board wipe, sometimes you're looking for some value spells, so this allows you to just discard cards you don't need in this matchup or in the current board state. Rakshasa's Bargain, also very good. It puts total 3 cards into your graveyard, so good at filling your graveyard for cards with Escape or Delve. And we also got some creatures that can draw us additional cards. Be wary that Emeritus of Ideation is basically many times a 6-drop. So I usually play it when I have 6 mana open and 3 blue mana open, so I can play it and immediately play the Ancestral Recall, because in many times when it gets removed before you could draw those 3 cards, that's very bad for you. Sometimes it's better to wait, unless you have to like block immediately or something else. Here are some point removal cards that I want to highlight. As I stated at the beginning, this deck can get behind in matchups against aggro or tempo, so we definitely need some removal that is cheap. That's why I play Cut Down and Fatal Push. I don't play the Requiting Hex, because it only kills creatures with mana value 2 or less, and Cut Down can kill some free drops, and sometimes you can combine Cut Down with other spells, like for example Virtue of Persistence, to shrink a creature, and then it may be in the range of Cut Down. I also play Bloodchief's Thirst, very good early game, and later can kill Planeswalkers. I also like much of the Wretched Sorrow. If you play against aggro, sometimes you want to even exile cards from your hand to just deal more damage to a creature, gain more life, and later in the game you will gain value, so you won't care about that one card you exiled that much. I like that it also hits Planeswalkers, because a resolved Planeswalker can also be somewhat a pain for this deck to deal with. That's why we also play Bitter Triumph. You can also discard a card to enable some graveyard cards like Uro, Oculus, Pleasure Cruise. Abrupt Decay is a very good general removal. I also play Witherbloom Command. I like it that it can destroy a creature with 1 toughness and get you a land at the same time, or it can destroy some small pieces like some graveyard hate artifacts, like the ones we already play here, like Ghost Vacuum or Unlicensed Heroes. But overall I think that sometimes it's a card that doesn't do that much. You can always get a land, and you can always use the life mode, but I think I will be cutting this card from my deck, because sometimes what it does is just not enough for a given board state. We also got some other spot removal cards. Witch of Persistence, it also gains us life and allows us to get some creatures from graveyards later in the game. And remember that Virtue can give you cards from opponent's graveyard, but the Terminus only gives you card from your graveyard. We have also some removal for all types of permanents, that's very good. We also have Oko that can sort of deal with creatures because it can elkify anything into a 3/3 elk. And we got Professor Darian Fell, both very good planeswalkers, also good at stabilizing because both can gain life. Overall, even though we play board vibes, that point removal also complements our removal suit. Sometimes we just need to remove one creature for a cheaper price, or just we can't wait for a full board wipe, we have to kill something earlier. This deck is also about some graveyard shenanigans. We've got cards that can exile something from graveyard for some value, like Deathrite Shaman, or cards that use our own graveyard and exile cards from our graveyard to just deploy, like Oculus, Treasure Cruise, or preparing Emeritus of Ideation, Escaping Uro. We've got also some cards that return something from our graveyard, like Emeritus of Abundance or Overlord of the Bailmurk. With Emeritus, we have to be very careful about what we exile from our graveyard when playing cards like Treasure Cruise, because there is always a chance that we draw Emeritus and can return something back. So those are some hard decisions. The cards that allow us to discard and draw are also good here, like Winter Night Stories, Marank Regent, Wistfulness. Rakshas's Bergen also puts 2 cards into our graveyard. And some cards just straight up mill us. We also got some graveyard hate. I chose Ghost Vacuum and I licensed Heals among other artifacts that exile graveyards, because both of them can impact the board. Heals can sometimes become a very big creature after a few turns. Ghost Vacuum can be sacrificed to bring some creatures on board. But be wary that if you exile something with Ghost Vacuum, you sacrifice it, everything comes in as a spirit, but they don't have finality counters on them. So if those creatures die, they go back to your opponent's graveyard. So keep that in mind. So if you exile an opponent's Uro, maybe you don't really want to put it back into their graveyard, and then they will be able to escape it. Scavenging Goose is also a good card to have. It can gain us life, that's sometimes very relevant, and we can also tutor it because we have 3 cards that can search for creatures here. So it's good to have creatures that play different roles and can be fetched for different occasions. We also got some hand attack. Thoughtseize and Deceit are just all stars, very good. I also talked about Poison the Waters before. I also wondered if I want one more hand attack spell, and which spell would that be. And then I realized that the biggest threat for this deck are creatures or planeswalkers, and usually opponent has one of them in their hand. Control decks play more planeswalkers, creature decks have more creatures, yeah, that's obvious. So I thought that this little forgotten hand attack piece might be better, because cards that like Duress sometimes miss, and that's not great. And in my experience with this current meta game, this card doesn't miss very often. After playing July 26 League of Pioneer Highlander, I will be cutting 4 cards from this deck. I mentioned all of them before while talking about different cards. What I am bringing in their place. I think this deck just needs some more cantrips, more ways to just find the right piece in the right moment. Consider its premium at this, because it can even put 2 cards into your graveyard because it can surveil. So it can also fuel cards like Oculus, Uro, and stuff. I wanted to check out Pillage the Bog, which is kinda similar to Consult the Star Charts. But Pillage the Bog looks at twice the number of lands you control, so it can dig much deeper than Consult the Star Charts. It has a drawback because it only fetches you one card, but sometimes I just need to find my board wipe and I need to dig very deeply, so I think it will be good for such occasions. I also thought about including summon friendly rather just generic good card that can ramp us, it can block early, and if opponent is playing some control with little creatures, it can sometimes draw us a card, or if opponent doesn't have much creatures on board because we board wiped them before. So I like it. It's multi-purpose card. Last thing I want to talk about is mana base. I divided the lands into some series. We play 5 creature lands, and I think that Sultai Corals has some of the best creature lands in the series. I also like Hive of Eye Tyrant and Holstorm Giants. This one is just a big creature with ward, and having to exile something with Hive is also very good. And we also got 3 of each kind. We've got 3 fast lands of each 2 color pair of Sultai. We've got 3 slow lands of each color pair, 3 verges. Fast lands can be a bit painful later in the game, but they are important to enable our mana in the early game. You also got the surveil lands and the shock lands, which is no surprise to play with our 5 fetch lands that are legal in Piolander. I also put in some more green and black sources, because green and black is important for us in the early turns to remove something or to fix our mana with the green. When we look at the number of mana symbols, we got most symbols in black and in green, and least in blue. We also got a Triomad lands that give any color of mana, Lash Portico for Atraxa, a series of channel lands. They are very good because they come untapped and can also be used in other way. 2 basic lands of each kind. We've got some cards that fetch basic lands from our deck, so it's good to have 6 of them, not 3. We also got 2 lands that destroy other lands, also very useful to destroy other pesky lands of opponents like creature lands or opponents' Field of the Dead. That card doesn't always pop off, but it can help us stabilize later in the game, or can flood the board if we have some more land. I didn't want to put here many more pain lands because as the name suggests, they just make us lose too much life, and we don't want to do that for our aggro and tempo matchups. I also didn't put that many check lands here because we don't always have a land that has a type, and we want our lands to just come untapped more of the time, regardless of the circumstances. I also play only one model dual face card, that Jewelry Disruption. Maybe I could play more, but I don't want that many tap lands here. I play a total of 44 lands, including that one Jewelry Disruption. This deck really needs many lands to function, and some ramp spells won't work if you don't have enough lands. For example, Growth Pilar won't work as a ramp spell when we don't have 4 lands total between our turn 2 and turn 3. And that's all I've got for you today. To sum this up, this deck has some very good individual cards that provide value, that are efficient at removing things. It also has some nice flexibility, some ways to deal with different kinds of permanent, some ways to get proactive. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. That's all for today. If you liked my content, you can leave a like, subscription, or a comment. Thank you and goodbye.